Call this meeting to order. Marnie, would you call the roll, please?
Councilmember Mark Gregg.
Here.
Councilmember Elizabeth Jolin. Councilmember Henry Rosenthal.
Yes.
Vice Mayor Sharon Mahoney. Here. And Mayor Buddy Pinder.
Here.
We have a quorum.
All right, and I've asked Jason if he would please lead us in the pledge. Thank you. To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Choking on my life.
Okay. We'll have a quick prayer right here and we'll move on. Lord, thank you for this awesome day that you have made today. Let us rejoice and be glad in it. And we just ask that you would lead each and every one of us up here, us council members. We pray for all of our family members. We pray for all the residents, the businesses, and everybody that's involved. We just ask blessings upon blessings upon them. And again, we just thank you for this beautiful day that you have bestowed upon us. And we ask all this in your precious name. Amen. Okay, council, any requests for deletion or additions, emergency additions?
I have one.
Okay.
I want to pull tab 14.
Tab 14, which is what we were going to start on. Okay. Hey, John, do we have to have a consensus, or can Councilman Rosenthal just pull it?
Yeah, it would be a consensus, or it could be considered a motion to defer it. Either way, yeah.
Okay. All right.
I kind of need to know
Why do you want to do that?
Yeah.
You want to pull it and not talk and not deal with it? Okay, why?
I don't have to tell you.
Okay.
They want you to be on the
Henry wants you to be on that mic.
Okay.
Here, hold on.
Well, okay, I would kind of like to discuss it because I kind of think it's a good idea in this conflicting, this
If you
contentious.
would like to discuss it, I'm going to recuse myself.
Okay.
Okay, if that meets with you, that's fine, because I have a reason to recuse myself, and I would think anybody else that's involved with 14 or has been or whatever may want to consider the same thing. Just a suggestion.
Okay. All right. So we're going to move on with it, council, then, all of us, from what I'm hearing?
No one else said anything, but are we in agreement?
Well, I'm okay to move on, but clearly this does have to be addressed at some time, because it's, it'll probably happen, hopefully not within the next 9 months, but it'll happen again.
Well, there's some discussion in the legislature pertaining to this.
And what is that? Do you know?
Yes, I do know, but I really don't care to
Okay.
get into it until they make up their mind up there.
Okay, so we can bring this back, John? Oh, go ahead.
John, can we defer this to another date, or what?
Well, they want to discuss it.
Okay, all right.
So what we need here is a motion to defer to a follow-up meeting or to remove completely. Whatever the motion is, we need a second and a vote.
Okay, otherwise, we're going to hear it, right? We're going to hear it now.
Correct.
Okay. All right, council, what would we like to do? What's the will of council?
Could we talk about it, but if we decide not to vote on it now, could we then defer at that moment?
Yep.
Okay.
I mean, I just feel, I know a little bit about what Henry's referring to, but
Okay. So let's talk about it then. You decide whether we're going to defer it, or
Do you want to talk about it now, or do you want to call the item and discuss it and then consider deferring then?
let's call the item and discuss it.
Okay. So we can do that, and then if you want to discuss it, and then we can, there can be a motion to defer. It's appropriate now or then, either time.
Okay.
So we're going to do that, though. I would open it up for general public comment before we get to tab 14.
Okay, all right. So now, public general comment is open. General public comment is now open. I'll get my words right. Marnie, you have any takers?
We do. First up is Van Cadenhead, followed by Sandy Biseglia and Larry Dalton.
Good afternoon, Council. I'm Van Cadenhead from Alamorada. As you know, I was attending your closed session to make a public comment before because there had been a precedent set at the previous session that allowed Mrs. Miller 3 minutes to speak for the public that was there. And I was denied that this time and was not even allowed to sit in the third floor waiting room to wait for you to be finished with your meeting. I was relegated to the second floor administration planning department waiting room for an hour. And the meeting you started was at 4:05, and I showed up on the third floor at 5:05 and was told that you weren't done yet. So I came over here. And I'm probably not one of the people that you would want to be sitting on the jury when this comes to trial with Mr. Galizio, because I've sat here and watched Mr. Galizio perform his duties for 18 months, which was exactly what this council and village needed, was a revamp of the code and the LDRs, and he was doing a sterling job. And for political reasons, shady economic reasons, in my opinion, he was removed, and I think it's reprehensible that you would withhold his pay and his benefits that he is owed under his contract, over $300,000. He's entitled to that money. There's no question about that. I mean, in my opinion. And also in my opinion, that the harm that you have done to this village by kneecapping him and putting the process in a state of limbo since he left, and with stopgap measures, is also, well, it may not be legally criminal, but it sure isn't ethical. And what you've done to us by doing what you've done for your own selfish reasons, and I think they're economic reasons, he was not providing the permits that you wanted in a timely fashion, because he was adhering to the codes and LDRs of this village and trying to solve the problem that we have. I think he's going to be entitled to a large punitive damage from this village, and he's well deserving of it. And the people of the village should remember what it is costing them to have allowed you to do what they allowed you to do to him without saying anything. It's going to cost them. Because if you put his case and the preponderance of evidence in his case in front, yes, sir. You know, I've waited a long time to say this, so you can give me another minute, can't you, sir?
I'll give you 30 seconds, Van.
Okay. Well, the preponderance of evidence is ever presented before 12 jurors and a judge, and you people are all put under oath to testify how this case went down, then there's no doubt in my mind it's going to cost the village a lot of money, because you are as guilty as the day is long. Thank you.
Who's next, Marty?
Sandy Biseglia.
Hi, Sandy Biseglia, full-time resident. Complaints and lawsuits have reportedly been filed across the country over pickleball's percussive acoustic contamination, generating noise pollution that proves irritating to nearby office workers in staff buildings and parks, as the decibel level of the ping of the returned balls is documented as quite higher than, for example, tennis. Also, more passive enjoyment activities by other park users, both inside and outside park buildings, such as the yellow building we are in right now, also need to be considered for the productive enjoyment of all. Imagine having 8, 10, or 12 occupied noisy courts adjacent to this building during the daytime and evening, while other legitimate functions are also competing to be heard. Full-time residents raising families here have greater rights to preserve Founders Park natural attributes than do part-time resident users who represent a small niche group such as pickleball. Creating more courts, as is being pushed in draft that I have seen, means displacing up to 42 parking spots right outside this building, presently used by other major user groups for soccer and baseball, lacrosse tonight, not to mention the impact on quiet pedestrian trails, bike trails, and consideration of adjacent office workers. We all watched the Great Lawn being dug up for several months over this past year in regard to the underground irrigation system there, which I think was just redone, and now we're being lobbied to pave it over and or repurpose it as a pickleball parking lot. The Great Lawn is there to provide flexibility for many uses, not just potential parking permanently for one niche group. That is why a strategic plan has been presented to the Parks and Recs group to proceed systematically, both financially and with consideration of shared utilization for the greatest good, for the greatest number of Islamorada taxpayers, resident users, not just single user groups pursuing the latest trend. Founders Park should not be turned into a commercial sports complex atmosphere, and the Parks and Recs Committee's job is to take a helicopter view for the balanced benefit of all users, not to fast track one user group at the expense of the rest of us who have also worked to buy the park, preserve the park, still considered a gem, as Henry often mentions, because it accentuates trees, grass, and passive natural features with flexible use and natural beauty for the thousands of us regular users. Thank you.
Thank you. Martin, anybody else?
Yes. Next up is Larry Dalton.
Good evening, board, staff. Thank you all very much for your service to the community. The time and effort you put in is greatly appreciated by all the citizens. I'm the president of the Homeowners Association of Madeira Bay. We're a community behind Bayside Gourmet, to get you a concept of where we are. We have had issues with the village's solid waste vendor since the transition, and wanted to kind of bring you guys up to speed. To begin with, the previous vendor, Waste Management, we had an agreement with them that they would pick up. We had no issues with them, period. 3 times a week. It was a Tuesday, Thursday, Saturday deal. When the transition came, the new company has refused to honor the 3 times a week, stating, no, we only have documentation of twice a week, and we're going to charge you the same as we did before for the 3 times a week. Well, guys, that's just not right. So now we're stuck with 2 times a week, and we're paying as much as we did for 3 times a week with the previous vendor. I've gotten nowhere in conversations with Island Disposal. Multiple calls have been unanswered, not necessarily on this issue, but other issues. Since January 1st, they've missed 4 pickups, okay? Twice a week, okay? It's only 12 times. They've missed a third of them. When I call, most of the time, they don't call back. Or when I do get somebody to answer, they state, oh, there was construction debris in there, and we didn't pick it up. And they're still going to pay us for it. Well, there's no construction debris. They just didn't pick it up, and they're not giving us any refunds on the times they don't pick it up. Saturday, again, they missed. They didn't pick it up. No call back. No issues as far as, hey, sorry, we forgot. You know, I'm not asking for apologies. I'm asking them to do their job. Pick up the garbage when they're supposed to pick up the garbage. It's not happening. I've spoken with other businesses that have dumpsters like mine. Quite frankly, I'm getting some complaints from the same. Not everybody. Some people, it's working out great. Other people, they've had missed pickups. We never had that issue before, again, with Waste Management. Again, the village voted on this change. We, as a homeowners association, have to pay them, okay, for the service, but it's a monopoly. It's not like I can go down the road and hire somebody else. If we lived in another community, I could get another vendor, not a problem. But we're stuck here. So I'm asking the board to give us some assistance, because I'm not getting anywhere with these guys, and neither are my homeowners that keep calling them and calling them. The other thing is that when it overflows, because they haven't picked it up, well, now it's $100 for a bulk trash pickup. Okay? It used to be less. I don't remember exactly how less, but I remember, $50 at one point. Now it's $100 every time, that there's a bulk trash issue. So those are concerns that we've had. I apologize if I'm over.
That's all right. That's all right. Thank you. Kimberly, can we look into that? Can we follow up on that?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
All right. Thank you. Okay. Anybody else, Marnie?
Yes, next up on Zoom, we have Mr. Wishmeyer. Okay, Mr. Wishmeyer, go ahead. You've got 3 minutes.
Joe Wishmeyer, Plantation Key. Mr. Mayor and Council, regarding the notion that the sitting council should also serve as the LPA seems self-serving and not in the best interest of the residents of Islamorada. The LPA is made up of citizens living in the village. These volunteers apply for and then get appointed by or approved by council members. The purpose of this committee is to review and examine major development projects and then make suggestions and vote before sending the consensus to the council, saving you enormous amounts of time and effort. Even though the council is not bound to follow the LPA's suggestion, we would hope that you would listen and follow what they suggest. The LPA seems to be a buffer between developers and council members. With all of the talk about transparency, unity, and regaining the trust and respect of the residents, why would you, council members, take on a task that may seem as inappropriate and a conflict of interest? With the length of meetings being so long that we had to go to 2 meetings, well, really still one, just spread over 2 days, a month, some council members are so busy with travel plans, it makes it difficult to schedule special call meetings for important items. Tuesday's meeting agenda had 21 tabs, 566 pages, along with presentations and communications that you had to read and understand in order to make responsible decisions. Why take on even more tasks? Keep the LPA intact, support them and their decisions, and let them do their jobs. Avoid the appearance of impropriety. I am still trying to figure out how you justify spending over $1.7 million on an open-air observation deck to see the ocean. At over $700 a square foot, it costs more than a house with kitchens, bathrooms, walls, and appliances. The past councils have approved residents' requests for recreational things, including more pickleball courts. Adding lines and nets to the basketball court helps out, but interferes with Treasure Village school recess time. While pickleball courts are being used every morning with clinics, round robins, and private lessons, there are only 3 designated courts. Lines on the tennis courts were started and then stopped. I have not heard many residents campaigning for an observation deck. Why not buy the tennis club on Lower Matacumbe and build pickleball courts on the existing tennis courts and have room for some workforce housing, which is sorely needed? In closing, on a positive note, I am glad that you all revisited and selected a new manager with a unanimous 5-0 vote. Now you need to let him do his job as soon as possible. Thank you.
Marnie, anybody else?
Yes, next up, Don Horton.
Anybody after Don?
No, sir, Don's
Okay.
last.
All right.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. For the record, I'm Don Horton. And I'd like to follow up on a few things that were portrayed as factual at the last meeting. First, some folks may come up here and tell you that they speak for the majority of residents, but that just might not be the case. As a 47-year resident of Plantation Key and the patriarch of 4 generations living in Islamorada, someone who's directed a building department in the county, someone who's directed the building department and code enforcement in Islamorada, and has been a business owner of 4 successful businesses in the Upper Keys, I can assure you, and you all understand, the 5 of you do, that in this town it's difficult to get a majority to agree to anything. We all have our opinions, and that's a good thing. Also, I personally like to think that there's a huge difference between healthy respect, dialogue, and dissent. I'm just saying. Next, I'd like to remind you all that you were convinced to spend roughly $80,000 on a Markham study that basically proved that the contractor library of the village that the village maintains is not flawed, that the maintenance agreement is valid, and the people that don't understand what it takes to maintain our wastewater system shouldn't try to become experts in public works overnight. I, for one, like to have a local contractor fixing and maintaining our system, a contractor who has bid the project where no one else would or could, and someone who's willing to and has come out on holidays, on weekends to fix broken pipes, broken valves and pumps. Trust your professional staff and stop listening to the Monday morning quarterbacks. And please remember, as I've told you before, and I'll say it again, just because some malcontent stands up here and speaks with authority, it doesn't make what they say factual. Let's just stop wasting money on unnecessary studies. Let's bring our community back together, and let's get on with the business of the people. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Don. Okay, Marnie, nobody else, right?
That is correct.
Okay.
Mr. Mayor, there's one important thing that we didn't do. Today is Jennifer's birthday.
Oh, man.
And we need to wish her a happy birthday. So,
We're going to sing?
happy birthday to you.
Thank you.
Happy birthday to you. Many more on Channel 4.
Thank you.
Okay, so with that
welcome.
being said, public comment is now closed. Are we going to now discuss tab 14?
Yep, I'll read the item, and
Okay.
that way y'all can discuss it. It's, tab 14 is it's an ordinance on second reading. It's an ordinance of Isla Mirada Village of Islands, Florida, amending the village code by amending Chapter 2, Administration, Article 2, Officers and Employees, Division 1, generally, by creating Section 2-33, Reimbursement of Legal Expenses and Defensive Officials, providing for the reimbursement of defensive officials, definitions, request and approval, authorization, reservation of rights and immunities, applicability, malicious, frivolous, and groundless allegations, providing for severability, providing for inclusion in code, and providing for an effective date.
Thank you, John. All right, council, who wants to start? Second reading.
Well, I think we kind of covered everything on the first reading. I don't have much to add since then. I'm not sure what's happening in the legislature that could impact our decision tonight, but if anyone knows, I'd be happy to listen.
Councilman Gregg, let's, Marnie, we have anybody signed up for public comment for this?
Van Cadenhead.
Okay. You coming up, Van?
I want to hear from you all.
Okay. All right, come on up if you're...
Well, I mean, I just want to, public comment happens at the time it happens. So if public comment's now, then
public comment.
yeah, but I just want to make sure that the public understands that there's not like a second public comment period for items.
Thank you, John.
Okay. No.
Okay.
If that's how it's going to be, that's how it's going to be. Usually you all discuss it before public comment and then allow the people to have your input when we come up here. I'll bow to your wishes, sir. This should be gauged by the David Webb fiasco that occurred with the Sunshine Law violation that happened in here right on that spot. And it was regrettable that Mr. Webb paid a fine of $250 so that it wouldn't show up in court, and yet the village of Isla Mirada miraculously paid $13,000 for his attorney to defend him against this, and again, he was as guilty as all outdoors. I mean, Sue Miller took pictures. I sat here and watched it. I got Mr. Quick by the arm and said, look over there, there's a sunshine violation happening. And he and Henry were engaged in conversation outside of a gavel right here in this room about the garbage contract, which was just being complained about, and was a multi-million-dollar contract, and yet he was not allowed to make his case in front of a judge. He didn't have to make his case in front of a judge. I confronted the state attorneys about it, And he said, well, it wasn't on me, it was on somebody else. Well, no, that's not true. And we're going to have a sunshine law, and we're going to have a sunshine law violation, and we're not going to recognize that it was a violation, then that pretty much leaves it open for all 5 of you to dismiss the sunshine law, which is basically the signal that you're sending. And this ordinance that you're discussing here tonight does the same thing. In other words, if you're found guilty or innocent of whatever kind of ethics violation that you have been accused of, or went to court for, or went in front of a judge for, and have been found innocent, then perhaps the village should pay your legal fees. But if you're found guilty, if you're guilty as the day is long, then you should not have any money from the people of Islamorada to cushion your fall. You should be personally responsible for your actions. And this is not it. This is not the way that this should be handled. And if you are found to be guilty, then I think there should be something written into this ordinance that absolves the people from Islamorada for putting up for your defense, because the Webb case showed $13,000 that we did not need to spend, and it was erroneous decision. Thank you very much.
Hey folks, Larry Dalton, Islamorada. I spoke the last time this came up, and I just want to take the opportunity to remind the commissioners that they are held, because they're elected officials, held to a higher level of legal standards than the rest of the community is. You have civil offenses, okay, potential civil offenses, potential criminal offenses, but because you're elected officials, you also have ethical violations. And so it's a higher standard that you guys are held to, and you're really elected officials with a fiduciary duty to do what's best for the community, not necessarily what's best for yourselves. So I, as a citizen, get very upset when I hear a commissioner state, well, that doesn't help me. That's a concern, because it should be only what helps the community. Now, I want to agree with Van. The only time any funds should be used to offset the cost of a legal defense is when, and it doesn't matter whether it's civil, criminal, or ethical, when that person or that elected official is innocent. Not no contest, not pay a fine and get out of it, only if they're found innocent. And when I read the little bit in the thing, I couldn't tell how you're going to phrase this. But it should only be used, public funds should only be used if an elected official is found innocent. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, Marty, any other public comment?
No, sir.
Okay, public comments now closed. Hey, John. Okay, yeah, you can stay.
I was just going to say, I agree with the gentleman that was here and with Van. Can we get this a little clearer, this description? Because I was sitting here wondering, too, what it meant.
Well, it's for the successful defense of it, so you have to prevail. And then so that's in section B, where it says shall reimburse any official incurred in successfully defending against criminal, civil, ethics, or administrative legal action. And then if you go under D, it also talks about in no event shall such reimbursement be paid to persons under certain circumstances. It lists 4. One of them is an adjudication of guilt, conviction, or whether adjudication is withheld, finding that by the Commission on Ethics that the official has violated anything, a plea of nolo contendere, with whether adjudication of guilt is withheld, or a stipulation of compromise.
Okay, thank you. And all that fancy legal talk.
Hey, John, can you explain, just so for the public that was watching, okay, this Mr. Webb's trial went through the state's attorney's office, right? And he
Correct.
was it was dismissed or whatever it was? It wasn't?
Yeah, there was, yeah, so I don't know what happened at the trial. Obviously, we didn't participate. It was a state attorney prosecution, but the court dismissed it, yeah. There was an adjudication, and I remember, I don't have it in front of me, but I remember the box checking off dismissed.
Okay, all right, that's all.
I think he just paid cost of investigation. But there was no finding of guilt or fault of any kind. On his
I
part.
thought it was dismissed, so I just.
It was.
When Van is saying he's guilty, I just wanted to hear what the state's attorney's office did. I wanted John to quote that, okay, for the general public, okay? All right, thank you. Okay, so counsel, any other conversation?
I would just like to make a comment to address a couple of the public speakers there. First of all, this does not reward anyone who violates the law with a free payment of their lawyer. That's obviously not what we want to do here. And it does not say that, Van. We do not reward violators. The other thing is that I'm in my 8th year of public service on the council, and I've had 2 of these things filed against me, both of them frivolous, both of them dismissed before they even got investigated. And as a candidate coming aboard down the line, I think it's important for the candidate to understand that their government is behind them when someone files a frivolous or unfounded claim, because otherwise they're going to be discouraged from running for office. And there is no limit to what people will do in politics and in life, and you could see it in the election coming, to try to discourage you or frustrate you, embarrass you. I mean, they file all kinds of nonsense. And so the idea that we're doing this for us, well, yeah, maybe there's some of that there, but in my world, my reason for bringing this up is for those who come after me, they will have the confidence to know that if they've done nothing wrong, that their village government and their village people will stand behind them and support that finding of innocence. If they're not innocent, if they did something wrong, that's on them, and they pay the price for it.
It's also, I want to remind everyone that the village has this by way of the county code. This is expanding it a little more, explaining it a little more robustly, and it does expand it to ethics and administrative proceedings as well. But we do have this set up when we adopted the county code at the time it existed then, and that's how former council member Webb, he traveled under that for reimbursement of his legal expenses. So we do have something similar. This is just making it a little bit more robust than what we have through the county.
Okay.
So I would move to approve this
Okay. We
item.
got a motion. Do we have a second?
Second?
I'm going to make a comment.
Go ahead. Before we.
As you probably guessed, at one time I gave consideration to the council picking up some legal fees, of which I'm involved with. Every time we sit down for the budget, I try to make revisions on behalf of the people to reduce the expenses. I feel I was one of the first people to promote the lowering of the taxes. And if I ask for legal fees, I'm no different than the person who has made some allegations against me. Therefore, I am not going to ask for any legal fees. I'm going to pay them because I can't speak out of one side of my mouth and do the other. So that's where it is. If you choose to give it to me, I'll certainly be grateful, but I am not requesting you or the people to pay my legal fees. I'm on my own, and I stand up. That's the way I am. So I just want to make that. I also recuse myself, as I said before, for voting. With that, I'll say thank you.
Okay. John, are we good with that, with him? You got recusing himself?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know the basis, but yeah, I mean, if he feels there's an appearance of or reason for appearance purposes that he can recuse himself, yeah.
Okay. All right, so I think we got a motion and a second. Marnie, would you call the roll, please?
Councilmember Elizabeth Jolin?
Yes.
Councilmember Mark Gregg,
Yes?
Vice Mayor Sharon Mahoney,
Yes.
and Mayor Buddy Pinder.
Yes.
Motion passes 4-0.
We're on to tab 15. This is also an ordinance on second reading. It's an ordinance of Islamorada Village of Islands, Florida, amending Chapter 22, Housing, Article 3, First-Time Homebuyer Down Payment, amending Section 22-64, providing for severability, providing for inclusion in the code, providing for the transmittal of this ordinance to the Florida Department of Commerce, and providing for an effective date upon the approval of this ordinance by the Florida Department of Commerce.
All right. So, Marnie, any public comment on this?
Yes, Deb Gillis.
Okay. So, hey, Van, just so you know, I'm following my script that I have right here. Public comment is after Mr. Quick. I just wanted you to know that, okay? Okay, Deb.
I kind of was on that post with Van there, is that depending on what you had to say about this, I wasn't going to talk. But since I get to go first, I'll go first. I just would appreciate it if you would support what you passed on first reading. I sit on a affordable housing committee that tries to sell houses, and it has gotten in the way of doing this. So this would help correct that problem. It's hard enough for a low-income person to buy a house without this being one of the stumbling blocks. So I'd appreciate it if you pass it. Thank you.
Thank you, Deb. Marnie, any other public comment?
Let me double check on Zoom. No, sir.
Okay, public comment is now closed. Council?
Moved.
Okay.
Sorry, move to approve.
All right, any further?
I'll second it.
All right, any further discussion? Okay, Marnie, call the roll, please.
Henry's got his hand
Oh,
raised.
Henry.
This is the $10,000 for home buyers, right?
Correct.
And I spoke at the last meeting in reference to that, and I felt that the $10,000 would be more welcome for these people to succeed in life in general if the $10,000 went to lowering their housing and not buy a house, but just lower their housing right now. Spend it that way, $1,000 a month if you wish, and I think it would work better. I know we have spent $10,000 19 times. Hopefully, all those people have been successful. But the economic conditions right now, paying the rent is probably more important than paying the mortgage. If you pay the mortgage, you're really in trouble. I just wanted to mention that. I mentioned it at the last meeting, and I feel that it would be a better idea to lower the rent rather than giving them $10,000 for a home that they may not be able to keep up. So just my thought. With that, I'll say thank you.
Thank you, Henry. Marnie, we have a motion and a second. Would you call the roll, please?
Okay. Councilmember Elizabeth Jolin,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Sharon Mahoney,
Yes.
Councilmember Mark Gregg,
Yes?
Councilmember Henry Rosenthal,
Yes.
and Mayor Buddy Pinder.
Yes.
Motion passes 5-0.
Tab 16 is an ordinance on first reading. This is an ordinance of Islamorada Village of Islands, Florida, amending the village code by amending Chapter 2, Administration, Article 3, Code Compliance, Division 2, Administration and Enforcement, Section 2-121, Appeals of Order, providing for severability, providing for inclusion in the code, and providing for an effective date. This is just kind of a little bit of a cleanup, a proposed cleanup in the code. When a person or entity goes through the code enforcement process, they are entitled to appeal code orders. A question was raised by someone subject to the code order by their attorney as to whether or not the village has to compile the record on appeal that then gets transmitted to the appellate court. Under the appellate rules, it's done by, in this instance, it's done by the person appealing it. So it's incumbent upon them to prepare the record. This is just to make clear that we follow the appellate rules. We cannot override the appellate rules. Those are set by the Florida Supreme Court. We can't dictate different rules in terms of their procedures. So this is just to confirm that we comply with the Florida Rules of Appellate Procedure like we do. And it just cites to being in accordance with the rules of procedure. That way, if the Supreme Court ever changes it, we don't need to come back and change our code. We're just consistent with the rules of appellate procedure.
Okay, thank you, John. Marnie, we have any public comment? We're going to open public comment now.
No one signed up for this.
Okay, with that being said, public comments closed. Council, any further discussion? Do I hear a motion?
Move for approval.
I'll second it.
All right, Marnie, would you call the roll, please?
Okay, Councilmember Mark Gregg,
Yes.
Councilmember Elizabeth Jolin,
Yes.
Councilmember Henry Rosenthal,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Sharon Mahoney,
Yes.
and Mayor Buddy Pinder.
Yes.
That motion passes 5-0.
Tab 17 is also an ordinance on first reading. It's an ordinance of Islamorada Village of Islands, Florida, calling for a referendum vote to be held with the regular village election on November 5th, 2024, providing for submission to the electors of proposed amendments to the village charter pertaining to term limits, providing for placement on the ballot, providing for requisite ballot language, providing for notice of election, providing for authorization to village clerk and for village canvassing board, providing for severability, providing for inclusion in the charter/conformity of amendment, repealing ordinance number 24-02, and providing for an effective date. This is, you all may recall, we went through this at length, this issue, through a number of meetings. This has to do with changing the term of office from 8 consecutive years to 8 total years. There was discussion about whether or not it would be retroactive or prospective. Ultimately, it was decided by the council to be prospective, and we passed it. It recently came to my attention that there was an out-of-state case and which is not binding on Florida, but again, I want to be careful and make sure we are crystal clear in the ballot language, that said that a charter change of term limits would be applied is prospective, but they were going to retroactively look at the dates that they previously served and count those dates. So this proposed language is just to clarify what I think was the direction that was given at the last council meeting, which is we want this prospective, meaning forward-looking. So I just proposed adding the language in the ballot question, as well as the charter, that beginning with the 2024 village election, no council member shall serve more than 8 years in office. It's just to, again, with this new case, just kind of puts a little bit of ambiguity. I wanted to just clean that up.
Okay. All right. Thank you, John. Marnie, do we have any public comment?
Yes, we do. We have Ben Cadenhead, Ben Hillis, and Don Horton.
Okay.
Van Cadenhead again. I spoke against this because I spoke for retroactive, and I would like to say that anyone who serves 8 years on this board, their efforts are appreciated, and they should move aside for someone else. We've looked at Washington, and you keep bringing this question back up, the 4-year terms versus the 2-year terms and the stagger and this and that, because you can, because you're sitting in those seats and you're trying to get the best deal you can for yourselves and your future. But the House of Representatives has 400, in Washington, has 435 members, and they all sit for 2-year terms. And they could be elected as many times as they want to, as long as they can convince the voters to let them return to their seats after 2 years. And that's what I think should happen here. And if this is a small town, and 8 years is a long time. You can do a lot of things in 8 years. And we've had people that, like Chris Santee is an example. Mark is an example. And having done a great service for the community and got a large amount of experience and expertise, then they're in a position to help the next people that come into the seat. But to keep someone in a seat like Biden's been in there for 40 years, I don't think having somebody able to build a kingdom in 40 years is beneficial to whatever government entity he's representing. And I'll say the same thing for Alamorada. So I just would hope that you would find out that 8 years is a good term, and if it has to start in 2024, then that's going to allow Mr. Gregg to be there for 16 years. And I'm not thinking that that's really beneficial for Alamorada. It might be beneficial for Mr. Gregg, but I don't see it as being beneficial for the procedure that we should follow in every election. I think 8 years is plenty, and if you've been in there 4 years already, you can get 4 more, and as many times as you can get elected for 2 years, God bless you, and you know, do good for the people. Thank you very much.
Deb passes, so Don Horton.
Don Horton, Plantation Key. I'll make this real quick. So you guys are talking about term limits. We've had a little bit of discussion about staggered terms, 2-year, 4-year, maybe even the top 5 vote getters getting instead of a seat running or whatever. And all of this discussion, maybe it's time for us to have a charter review committee and consider looking at our charter and seeing how our town is changing and seeing how the thoughts are changing. And maybe you guys could sit down and consider about having a charter review committee. We haven't had one in quite some time. I was fortunate enough to be able to serve on both the charter review committees that we've had. I'd sure like to sit on another one if you decide to do that, if I'm not up there at council when that happens. But I think maybe with all of this discussion, it might be time to have one of those. Thank you.
Who's next? Deb?
Deb doesn't want to speak. Oh, Mr. Wishmeyer is on Zoom, so we'll let him go. Okay, Mr. Wishmeyer, go ahead. You've got 3 minutes.
Chair Wishmeyer, Plantation Key. I know when this came up the first time, there was discussion on whether to make it retroactive. And the concern was that some of the council members or some people in the public would not be able to run again. Since the election has been pushed back to November and the application form will take place before that, those people who were concerned about that, if elected, will be allowed to serve another term on the council. And I know that was a big consideration in that. So when you all discuss that, I hope you keep that in mind as to whether or not to make it proactive or retroactive. Thank you.
Okay, anybody else, Marty?
No, sir, that's it.
All right, public comments closed. Okay, council, any further discussion? No? Luke, with anything? Vice Mayor? Henry? Okay. All right, do I hear a motion?
Move for approval.
I'll second it.
All right, Marnie, we have a motion and a second. Please call the roll.
Councilmember Mark Gregg.
What's the motion?
Yes.
It's approved, tab 17 here.
I was just searching for the language.
Okay. I think John, John, you want to read? Henry wants to know what the motion is.
It's a motion to approve tab 17 as presented.
Right. First reading. Marnie?
First reading, yeah, this is first reading.
Call the roll, please.
So I have Councilman Gregg. So Councilmember Elizabeth Jolin.
Yes.
Councilmember Rosenthal.
Yes, excuse me.
Vice Mayor Sharon Mahoney.
Yes.
And Mayor Buddy Bender.
Yes.
Okay, that motion passes 5-0.
All right, we're on to tab 18.
Yep, that's in the motion section. Just a reminder to council, there are 3 listed, but we moved tab 19 up to the beginning at the last meeting, so there's only two left. So tab 18 is consideration to appoint Angel Borden to the Historic Preservation Committee.
Okay. Marnie, we have any public comment?
We do not.
Okay. All right. With that being said, public comments now closed. Council, any discussion here?
Yes.
Go ahead, Henry.
I'm unclear if somebody wants to join a committee after the application process has been closed. If anybody wants to join a committee, I commend them, even if they're late, as a member of the public, to be a part of the committee. I know there's rules and regulations, and I've gone through all that many times, but in this particular instance, why would anybody be refused? I have a problem with that. So I think the system deserves a look-see, and I would promote this person with her application to be accepted.
Okay. So, hold up one second.
I agree with Henry. If there's a vacancy, there's a vacancy on this. That has to be a vacancy, though.
Right.
Okay. No,
Okay,
that's fine.
so what I was told in my briefing the other day, when this came up, was that, and I got a call from another member that sits on this Historic Preservation Board, was that there was a precedent set here. When Mr. Pekovich got put on the nearshore water quality, there was a vacancy. And even though he didn't put his thing in, but he did get on, so basically that set a precedent. So that's what I told that's what I was told in my briefing. But Kimberly, if you'd like to add something to that.
So what we can add to this is Ms. Borden has been on the committee previously. There was an oversight on her part as far as reapplying for a new term. And because of the precedent that had been created that you just cited, we did take her interest in the committee and we're bringing it forward to you. So it's now at the pleasure of the council.
So Henry, I concur with you, okay, because there is a vacancy.
Right.
And, you know, we did it for someone else, so we gotta set our precedent, so. Okay, I hear a motion. How about a second?
I'll make the motion to approve.
Oh, okay, then I'll second it. You,
All right.
that's fine.
Yeah, there we go. All
Second.
right, Marnie, would you call the roll, please?
Councilmember Henry Rosenthal.
Yes.
Councilmember Elizabeth Jolin.
Yes.
Councilmember Mark Gregg.
Yes.
Vice Mayor Sharon Mahoney.
Yes.
And Mayor Buddy Pinder.
Yes.
Okay, motion passes 5-0.
Okay, so we are on to tab 20.
Yep, tab
John?
20 is a motion to adopt the resolution approving the third 60-day extension of the employee interchange agreement with Monroe County.
Okay.
And this would normally be under resolutions, but given the discussion with the manager, we wanted to move it. It was moved here, so it would be behind the discussion on the
Okay.
Permanent manager discussion.
Okay, all right. Marnie, do we have any public comment?
Yes, Van Cadenhead.
Okay. No, okay. All right, Van's declining. Any other public comment, Marnie?
Let me double check on Zoom. No, sir.
Okay, public comments closed. Council, any discussion here? Okay. Henry, go ahead.
In due respect, you've done really very well. You were not acquainted, but you took off running, and I appreciate that. I just think, for an action, that the new manager should have something to say as to whether he's in favor of the services of Kimberly or not, if he needs the extra knowledge, et cetera, et cetera. I just feel that's where it should be. Whichever way it goes, I'll agree with that, but.
Okay, well, Henry, I would, I might disagree with you a little bit there. I think that Mr. Cole hadn't come on board yet, and we need a manager. We've got somebody right here, and I actually would move to approve this.
I'm not suggesting that it should be, I don't know if 60 days is warranted, truthfully. That's just my feeling. I mean, whatever the board wants is fine with me. It's just, I'm just making a comment, that's all.
Okay.
So,
I say we just leave it as it is, and if she's not needed, then I'm sure she's, I'll pull her car up to the front of the door, okay?
There's a termination provision in there as well.
14-day, right, John?
Yeah.
Okay.
anyway,
I couldn't resist.
I'll follow your direction.
All right, so do I hear a motion?
I move for approval.
Do I hear a second?
Second it.
All right. Marnie, we have a motion and a second. Please call the roll.
Councilmember Mark Gregg.
Yes.
Vice Mayor Sharon Mahoney,
Yes.
Councilmember Elizabeth Jolin,
Yes.
Councilmember Henry Rosenthal,
Yes.
and Mayor Buddy Pinder.
Yes.
Motion passes 5-0.
Okay, so we're on to tab 21, John, which just the supplement reports.
Yeah, so unless anybody has any questions
Yeah.
on those, that would be it.
Okay, so, yeah, Council, let's talk about this for a minute. Because I know in my briefing, that we had us all in, and Vice Mayor just asked me, are we keeping all this in here?
Do you guys find it beneficial? Or is it too much time for the staff? I mean, can we do it like every 6 months? Would that?
Or quarterly or
Yeah.
something, but I think.
Would that be better?
This is taking a lot, I mean, I've talked to some of the staff, and it is taking a lot of time, and anybody that wants anything that we see right here can be asked for by public requests, public information requests.
Are you looking at me? 'Cause
Well, I'm just saying, the other thing is, in the back where it has scheduled travel and stuff, I mean, it was brought up to me that, people can read this and see that if a staff member is going to be out of town for a week or 2 weeks, that, we're putting that out there, okay? And this was brought up to me by a couple of staff members that they're going to be out of town, so could their house?
I don't know why that has to be in the agenda. It's
No, it
more of
doesn't.
a public records report, and if someone wants that, they can ask for it.
Exactly.
I mean, the agenda, as somebody complained earlier, is 522 pages.
So here's the thing, I think John said, we need to, as a council, give John and Kimberly a consensus. Do we want this or do we not want it?
So there was a reason we asked for these. Personally, I think that the information is helpful. The more information I have, the better. I think I totally respect the idea that it's staff time to put this in the agenda. It could also be something that's on our website so that it can be referred to. The after action report, I think, is fabulous. It brings up another interesting point about just how much staff time is used in putting together these agendas all together, whereas you could be using a tablet.
I'm a dinosaur. I don't use it.
Yes, you do. You do emails, Mark. It's just the same thing.
I have
could
help
you.
from teenage grandchildren.
I could help you. We could get a remedial version. It's something to think about. It would bring us into the modern age.
All right, so Council, since we're talking about this, can we take a consensus? Mark, do you want this or you?
Well, I personally like to receive the after-action report each time we have a meeting or whatever it is. It doesn't have to be in the agenda, but they can give it to us. They can stick it in the pocket or something like that. If the public wants it, we can put it on the website, whatever they want. But, this other stuff with, the billing and the travel stuff, that doesn't sound, we're not voting on that. I mean, if it's information, it's valuable to the public, and they should have it upon request or be able to find it easily. But I just don't think it belongs in here.
All right, so Henry, what's your opinion?
I'd like to know what everybody's doing, when they do leave Alamorada, what their intent is. What their intent is. I think it would be also kind of helpful as to when you attend a meeting outside of Alamorada, you have a little thumbnail report as to what went on and what you did and that type of thing. I mean, I keep a mental attitude to when some people go and what did they do? Did they bring back something instrumental to the city that we could say, thank you for going. Thank you for what you're doing for the city. Mark one time went to a meeting and he came back with a ability to track vacation rentals. Cost us $25,000, but that was okay, but that was you.
I came back with that.
Well, yes, I'm telling you.
Yes.
I'm telling you, I'm going to give you credit for that.
Thank you, sir.
You just gave it to Mark.
Actually, the guy called me the other day.
Oh, I'm sorry. I
It
said
was
Marcus
Buddy,
instead of
not
Buddy.
me.
Yeah. So,
I'm sorry. From here on out, I'll call you Alice, and that'll be the end of that.
okay.
Anyway, but Buddy did come back with a piece of work, and it was $25,000. I assume it's being handled that way now, but that was something that you came back with.
We need to
So-
find out if he gave us a discount, because other people in Monroe County, and I told him, hey, if we're the leader, then we need to get a little bit of.
But, you know, I mean, a number of you went up to Tallahassee a few days ago, and I'd kind of like to know what you saw or didn't see, or what you expected and unexpected. It'd take you 30 seconds to say what it was all about. I was unable to go. I've been many travels to Tallahassee over the years, leadership and everything else. So I don't mind paying the expenses, but I'd like to see something come back that we can use. That's all. I don't think that's a request out of the ordinary.
Well, and I think the other thing was, Carlos also went to Tallahassee for us, but for some of his other clients as well. And I thought a lot of those videos that were being done in Tallahassee or Orlando, wherever, that was letting the public, see what happens. So
The other thing about this list, let's say we take off the dates because I can respect people's privacy, but I think it's quite important for the community to know that our staff is being trained. I mean, I had no idea these things even exist. It makes me feel better about our recreation people and our fire department doing real training. I think this is actually, the travel is kind of important because it shows that we've got some professionalism but I can respect taking off the dates.
I agree it's important. I just think there's a better forum to put this in.
Say put it
The
online.
website or something else, but
So do we want to leave that to, it's administrative, isn't it? So let's keep the after action report and ask Kimberly to figure out where it should go online.
yeah. And also, I personally think it should be the actual cost, because a lot of this, I know for me, I know what I just spent because I have all the receipts, and it was like almost half it was half of what was in this report. So that's what I'm saying. I mean, we have, so what I did is I just did a public information request on everybody that went to Tallahassee, so I could see, because I'm allowed to do that. Any resident can do that, okay? So it should be actual instead of estimated, because sometimes it's under, sometimes it's over. So it should be actual cost. But you know what? As long as we have a consensus whether we want to take it out or that's all, I think it is a good thing.
I like it. I mean, I think this is pretty interesting. It's
Okay,
one
Kimberly.
page. I mean, I don't know.
So I think we have three things, if I may. One, the after action report, which is essentially staff saying, this is what we heard you say.
Right.
And it's the opportunity for you all to go, that's not what we said. And so you can correct us if we misunderstood. So that's very important. Number two, we have the travel. Absolutely agree that what you see as far as billing is number one important, but it's also part of the billing report. So you do have that, and it should be actual, not estimated. We could estimate that my plane ticket's going to cost X number of dollars, and then it costs something less. But absolutely paramount, and I feel incredibly passionate about this, is that staff safety is paramount. And when you start talking about putting into a document that I might put out today that says that someone, and potentially someone and their spouse, are going to be away from their home 2 months from now, and I'm going to put that online, that is compromising staff safety. And I'm sorry. If you all decide you want to do that, I obviously it has to be your choice, but I have to advocate for that as a really, really bad idea.
Well, I have
So-
staff members besides you, Kimberly, say something to me about this personally. Pulled me aside after my briefing and said why they did not think that was a good idea. So I'm speaking on behalf of our staff, as well. And, I know for my own experience, when you go to these things with League of Cities, League of Mayors, or whatever we're going, if it's the wildlife corridor, if it's the redevelopment conference, the CRAs and stuff, they have a block of rooms, okay? And they have a good price, all right? But that doesn't always mean that sometimes I go to check out and they don't have that rate, and it's a lot more, all right? So me personally, I'm very frugal because I just made them in Tallahassee. They didn't give me the right rate, and I made the manager, it cost me an hour, but I had him fix it, okay? So the bill went from $2,000 to $1,200, all right? So I think we have to follow up on that, and not only that, our clerk or our finance department can do the same thing, because when we go to these places, we should look after, I take it personally, okay, because I am representing the residents. So that's another thing. I'm and from being self-employed for many years and knowing how to run a business and watch my expenses, I take that stuff seriously. And last November, I had to do the same thing at the Hilton in Orlando, because sure enough, we have to give them our tax exempt form and everything. And, I had to get the manager again, because sometimes, I look at a bill for me that's $500, $600 more, but yet I see my buddy here that got the League of Cities rate, and it was, his bill was a lot cheaper than mine, like $400 or $500. So.
Mayor, I have to agree with you. I'm going to tell you, I've spent more than my fair share of time standing at the checkout desk, sounding like a crazy person, arguing over the bill. And I was in Orlando at the Hilton, and I argued with him for almost a month and a half and had to enlist the help of some really excellent women at the county who helped me out with that. So absolutely agree. But separating that, I just think it's really important that we not create a document that tells people when our staff is and is not going to be in or out of their area.
Okay, so are we in agreement with that,
Yes.
Council? Yes. Okay.
I did want to, while we're on this topic of travel, I did want to ask to lobby the village council to raise the allowances for meals. I have my sheet here from my last travel, and we're allowed $6 for breakfast, $11 for lunch, and $19 for dinner. I got in a hurry, and I went through the drive-through at a fast food joint for breakfast, and it cost me $14. And I'm happy to pay the difference, but I just think, this is from the Stone Age, and if we could make it more realistic.
Mark, at the Hilton, they charge $20 for breakfast.
Oh, it's crazy.
I never ate there because I went to Publix and got cereal and milk and bananas, okay? Yeah, but anyways, hey, I understand what you're saying, but two, if we turn our itemized receipts in, by the way, just so everybody knows, the village buys no alcohol. You can't, no alcohol.
Buddy, we are glad that you go to these events. We support you. We do. We do not have to defend yourself. We're all in.
No, I understand.
You're doing a great job.
How did you find that out?
What do you mean?
I'm just kidding.
Oh, that's
Well, they used to do it. I think they used to, and I heard some stories that some of the council people spent all their money on alcohol and had no money to eat on, had to borrow it.
All right.
So anyways.
Mayor, we are hearing you, and Councilman completely agree. I go through the fast food. I can't even get a breakfast sandwich for that. So we will make that adjustment and bring it back to you.
Okay.
Is a motion?
But we're keeping the after action report, right?
Is a motion for adjournment
Yeah.
in action?
Okay.
I just wanted to add, on the after-action report, we had, at an earlier meeting, and it's in our minutes that we already approved, that we were going to have the staff work on accessory dwelling units, and that wasn't there. And it is?
We gave you a new one.
I read it, but I can't find it.
It should be,
Well, anyway, I just want to make sure that we know that that's going to happen. So that's all I have to say.
All right, so I heard Henry make a motion for adjournment. Do I hear a second?
Second.
All right.